Hello, everybody. Welcome to, if it's your joining for the first time, or welcome back to the Edmonton Global Stage. We are here today with our final panel of the day. Thanks, everybody, for joining us, both online and in person, as well as all our lovely panelists for joining us today. This is our final session, like I said, for the day. If you have any questions in person, save those till the end of the panel. We'll leave 5 minutes at the end for any cues that you have. If you're online, feel free to send those questions to the chat, and then we can answer them at the end. Let's just jump right in. I know everybody's excited to go out and go get drinks after the long day we've had here. Arvind, why don't we start with you? Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Arvind Ramakrishnan. I'm with Deloitte. I lead the national hydrogen file for Deloitte nationally, and I've had the pleasure of working on numerous projects coast to coast with both public sector and private sector. So thank you for the opportunity and hope to share some perspectives and learnings today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Charles?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Charles Ward. I'm our Director of Natural Gas Strategy within Alberta Energy. Our team is the developer and implementing the hydrogen roadmap here in Alberta.
Beautiful. And last but not least, Marion.
So my name is Marion Chivot-Legris. I'm the Director of Sustainability and ESG, Environmental, Social and Government Strategy at Edmonton International Airport. So this is home, although I'm living in Montreal, and from my accent you can definitely hear that I'm not from Canada, I'm from France. I'm very excited to be here this week and to be part of that interesting discussion. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And again, thank you all for being here. Let's jump into our questions. Let's start pretty big picture. Can you all share kind of what you think the biggest challenge facing hydrogen is right now? Maybe we'll switch it up this time, Marion.
Yeah, so I think and I'm going to talk on behalf of the airport, but from our vantage point, the pressing global challenge right now is the infrastructure readiness, both on the built out and on the interoperability of hydrogen ecosystems. We think that hydrogen holds a huge promise, particularly for regions like Alberta. But not just Alberta, I would say just Canada in general. And the reason behind, as you know, is the abundant natural resources that we can leverage from, but also the existing expertise in the energy sector that is already there in the region. So that's very important that we create that momentum, and we can see that and you know, we would like to leverage from that from an airport perspective. That being said, there is an important mismatch between the ambition and the deployment. What we see when it comes to, for example, transportation, storage, safety, adaptation of regulations, we're not there yet, despite our efforts. And I would say some people are really convinced that that's the way forward. We can observe some gaps. So that's important that we all together, and this type of event this week is there for that, to synchronize policy development, safety standards, and not just at Canada level. I think it's important that we have this discussion globally, and we're very happy to have international guests this week to really have this discussion, because that's important, especially for aviation, that we have standards that are across the whole globe. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's you're echoing something that we at Edmonton Global talk about a lot, especially with the 5K challenge, that chicken and the egg. Like, how do we start building out infrastructure when we don't have a demand? Or do we start with the demand and go from there? So I think that's something absolutely that a lot of hydrogen can relate to, for sure. Yeah, Charles, what do you think is the biggest challenge?
No, I agree. I think infrastructure is definitely one of those big challenges. Connected to that, I think, is also just that price, the price of hydrogen. I think the infrastructure will get built if we can bring that price parity and bring that energy commodity that is hydrogen, that has so much promise, that makes it competitive. A lot of the technology out there is ready. It's ready to be built, and people will build it if we can get that price down. And here in Alberta, we have that opportunity really to do it. And a lot of the modeling we've done has shown that we can be one of the lowest cost, cleanest hydrogen producers in the world. And so we think that we can actually get that price down to a point where we'll get greater adoption, and we will see that investment into the infrastructure. And so both those things, I think, are tied closely. But I think price is one of those critical things that is really blocking from that broad, wide-scale adoption of hydrogen in our ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, talking about price, we talk about Alberta's expertise in the energy economy that we've had for decades at this point, right? So I think you're right. Like, if anywhere is equipped to do it, it's definitely Alberta. Yeah. Arvind.
Maybe at the risk of not repeating what they both, Marion and Charles have said, maybe I'll try to tie all that together. And I think the way we have to look at it is, what is the use of hydrogen and what incumbent fuel it's displacing, and what are the drivers for adoption for that particular sector or technology. So I think once those factors are there, then I think it's critical that then we have to lower the price curve, have the infrastructure in place. But more importantly, there is also some other factors there, like enablement of codes and standards, harmonization of codes and standards, fast track permitting. Like, those are also like key operational pieces that also have to come together along with price and infrastructure to get the consortium to activate adoption.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, like as you've kind of mentioned, like we talk about hydrogen now, like we're talking about a worldwide pursuit of decarbonization, right? I think there's a lot of challenges that the world is facing right now in many faucets, right? How are we seeing some of those uncertainties kind of challenging the hydrogen ecosystem and challenging our adoption and development of hydrogen? Charles or Arvind, either of you guys want to start?
Why don't you start?
Oh, you want?
Yeah. I'll go second again.
So I think the key there is to, even if you look at, I think maybe like export markets, I think it's critical for us, speaking on the theme of infrastructure, for us to ensure that we can move our products safely and reliably from the industrial main, from the heartland here along to the coast. So we need definitely transportation networks fully built out. And I think that is something that is a role for government, and I think it's critical that they play a role there. And until we see that kind of strategic interest from the government, these projects will be hard to take off from an export sector. So it's just trying to give a very specific example on some of those build out of the challenges, specifically on the export piece.
Yeah, there's definitely big challenges in a number of different places. The role of government in this space is going to be critical. We have a different perspective than a private company. We are there to look at the bigger picture and see how do we continue to invest and build the space and the opportunity for these businesses to thrive. And so creating policy in this space around whether it's activating legislation that gives certainty, price certainty, or investment certainty for these projects is really that critical role for us, and we will continue to play that role through our Alberta Hydrogen Roadmap. And we think that we're on the right path. We've done a lot of stakeholder engagement, and we continue to hear from our stakeholders that what is the role, what are the gaps and barriers that we need to step in and fill in order to make sure that private enterprise can really make this a success. And at some point where government steps back and just lets this stand on its own and it continues to thrive in its own respect.
Yeah, absolutely. Balancing that need for government with just letting businesses do what businesses do, right? I think that's very important. Do you have any case studies or any examples from maybe the last 12 months of how businesses, and this is for anybody, of how businesses have kind of taken these uncertainties or benefited from any government policies or incentives put in place to kind of work in the face of any uncertainties they have and really thrive in their hydrogen production market expansion?
There's a really interesting time right now where there's a lot of political uncertainty in at the national level here in Canada, but also with our biggest trading partner in the US. Their political uncertainty is actually demonstrating to a number of different project proponents and industry folks that Alberta has a very stable government, very stable investment portfolio and ecosystem. And we're starting to see, people come up to us and ask the questions, how do I get into the Alberta market in that hydrogen space, or in much of the other energy spaces as well. But since we're here to talk about hydrogen, I was down in Houston at CERAWeek, and I had that question probably from 2 or 3 different companies about, how do I get into the Alberta market, because we're really uncertain here in the U.S. So there's big opportunity to be had. Because of the stable environment in which the Alberta government has created, with our low income tax or the other incentives that we have, whether it's the Alberta Petrochemical Incentive Program or the Alberta Carbon Capture Incentive Program, we have created an environment where we want to see that investment happen, but we also want to see that benefit come to Alberta through increased monetization of our natural gas resources. We have a huge amount of resources here in the province, and we really want to see those resources put to good use.
I'd like to reflect on that. I think something that we can learn from the past 12 months is whatever is happening is to stay pragmatic. I think we've seen in Alberta to be stable. We have the resource. We are innovation forward. I was just with some Japanese guests earlier, and they're surprised. They're super interested. They're like, "Oh, you're doing that. You're already looking at conversion and stuff." I think it's something to keep in mind, because that would be the key to success. And we know that political changes can impact public funding, but also the private equity. And I think by stepping back and just sticking to what we know we're good at will just bring us further. And at the airport, and leveraging, for example, from the Alberta Hydrogen Hub, I think it's something very important. It's just leveraging from what is there. It's strong. And at the airport, that's something that we're looking at. Pragmatic, shovel-ready projects that we can start looking at converting some heavy-duty vehicles, or project at small scales, but showing that it's happening and we have the expertise, while just really staying pragmatic no matter what's happening. I think navigating uncertainty is something that the oil and gas and energy sector have been learning for many years how to do that. I think we should continue on that path.
Yeah, absolutely. That stability is something that we at Edmonton Global tote all the time. We talk about our business-friendly environment, as you said, and appealing to that internationally because of that. Arvind, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
Maybe I can throw in some global perspective. So we have taken a look at jurisdictions in Europe, California, Asia, and looking at those markets in terms of what worked well, how are those consortiums established, what was the role of government intervention, and how do they de-risk and attract investment in those particular jurisdictions and projects. And a couple of key highlights come to mind. One of them, which was a central theme in all the research that we have done, is a ecosystem consortium was formed in all those examples and cases. Like if you look at projects like NorCal Zero, Volvo Lights, high trucks, the one that Shell's running in Belgium, Germany, even that one H-Tech is doing, that's an example of consortiums coming together where you have to bring demand side partners, supply side partners, infrastructure service providers, all into the mix, and create innovative business models that makes your adoption super easy. Like in case of Germany, it's actually a pay-per-use model. The fleet operators pay on a per kilometer basis, and that's what really worked for them, because then there is no need of an upfront capital. And research even shows that they can still absorb a 15% premium than diesel. So anyway, my point is, as easy as we can make these consortia come together, I think we're going to see some greater adoption. So there's just some examples from global work that we have done.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing those. Those are great examples. I think recently, especially in the face of these uncertainties, we've seen a big move towards Canadian pride, the whole buying local, buying Canadian products. Is there any other kind of examples that you guys come to mind of Canadian businesses and Canadian people and what they've done to stay competitive, but also stay collaborative in the hydrogen market?
I can jump on that one. I think when we've seen, and that's something proven, that innovation often accelerates when constraints force creativity. And I think here there is an opportunity, and I saw the notes before this panel, but that west-east approach also should be looked at from a Canadian perspective, and just leveraging from that. I think it's important to keep in mind the opportunity lens I talk about pragmatism, but it's also like being very positive on the opportunity side, leveraging from that, finding the right partner. At the airport, for example, we're just not looking at the energy traditional sector, but also indigenous partners. Like, how can we be creative and make that a success as part of our roadmap? I think, yeah, I don't know, I can't remember who talked about the East-West approach, but that's something that I think we should have in mind from the Made in Canada lens.
Yeah, just building on that, I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty, I think, within the trade going north-south, and so there hasn't been a time that I can recall where there was so much support for building nation-building opportunities going east-west, taking down trade barriers, building infrastructure, and now is that time to seize that and really look at how do we continue to expand and diversify the opportunities for our Canadian businesses, whether it's going out to Asia, whether it's going out to Europe. I think the time is definitely now to really seize that opportunity with this uncertainty in the trade with the U.S. to really expand that trade going east-west. And one of the things that we've done recently is just re-signed with JOGMEC, an MOU to continue on that collaboration to expand on the opportunities to trade with Japan. Any and every energy material that they may need. We really want to be a secure energy supplier for them, and they want us to be that for them. So, we will continue to advocate for those and work closely with our provincial partners in BC to get our resources out across those provincial boundaries and to the international markets that are demanding it.
Yeah, absolutely. Interprovincial trade barriers is something that's being talked about a lot right now, as well as the kind of diversifying our investments and our trade. So we talk a lot about, you're right, both about the east-west going to Japan, and through the airport, we have one of the shortest air times and flight times to Asian markets just through our circumpolar routes. So I think absolutely opening up those east-west, even between our provinces, between other countries, US isn't the only option, right? Arvind, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think, they both touched on it, but I'll just slightly build on it, is we would love to see Alberta, British Columbia, come together and look at building energy corridors, right? That's absolutely critical and key. If you look at the traffic route coming from Edmonton to Prince Rupert, going through Prince George, that in itself is a key corridor. And if you can establish that as an example where both governments can come together, establish refueling infrastructure on both ends of the journey, or if it happens to be a pipeline or a rail, I think those are key infrastructure that is required right now to be able to start looking at those regional energy corridors to be able to move our product seamlessly, cost effectively. If it is cheap to produce here in Alberta, then let's figure out a way to cost effectively distribute that and move that to other parts of the region.
Absolutely. Yeah. Talking about, our low cost, low carbon hydrogen that we produce here is great, but it's how do we get it to everyone else to really help this global decarbonization happen? Absolutely. I guess last kind of formal question is, looking ahead, what gives you guys the most confidence about Canada's hydrogen economy and in the face of uncertainties and changing hydrogen markets? Anyone who would like to start, go ahead.
Well,
Marion.
I'm going to stop. I think the opportunity is clear. I think the appetite is growing. I'm going to talk from my sector, but hydrogen, is one of the solutions in the long term, and we need to look at it. And there is some initial application that needs to be explored to adapt the infrastructure. I think it's important that we have a coordination around the approach. Clear, strong procurement signals, off-text agreements. I think you probably heard it many, many times, but that will be the solution, making sure, we de-risk the sector and people are willing to get on board and make some firm commitments. Probably targeting incentive for manufacturing and the skill development for the workforce. And I think for the Edmonton region more particularly, I think we have a huge capital that we can leverage from the workforce. So I'm very excited. That's one of the reasons why I took that job at the airport, is because I wanted to explore. I came from the airline industry, and I wanted to explore what is in it for hydrogen in aviation. And some people are not, they're skeptical. I'm a strong believer, especially for the Edmonton region, that hydrogen is one of the key solutions for, shorter haul commuters, connection to the northern territories. So we have a fabulous platform. I'm very excited. By the way, I'm just gonna say it, but there is some stickers at the Canadian Hydrogen Association. I'm sorry, I'm probably gonna stick that on a Tesla next time I'm going to Costco. But I love them. I think I'm a strong believer, and I will continue to believe. And you need people convinced to continue the journey, and it's going to be still for a couple of years a lot of uncertainty. But I'm very confident that eventually we'll make it through.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We're seeing some real examples happening here in Alberta of this hydrogen ecosystem actually happening, whether it's the pilots of the fuel cell heavy haul trucks on the road, the buses, whether it's the Edmonton International Airport with the Toyota Mirais, or the big projects like Air Products and Dow with Linde building those huge facilities. We are seeing the investment happen. We are seeing that there is this opportunity. People believe in it. People are investing in it. They're putting their money where their mouth is. Could it have happened faster? I would have loved to have seen it happen faster. For us, we think that Alberta is really just that great place, and we've been so focused with the hydrogen roadmap on being technology agnostic, color agnostic. The hydrogen opportunity really is about using hydrogen in the most cost-effective and environmentally friendly way. And so we're really starting, what I'm really excited about is the narrative around this green versus blue hydrogen is really changing. And we've always trumpeted that the color doesn't matter. It's the carbon intensity. And it can't be just the carbon intensity. It has to be cost effective, because nobody's going to pay thousands of dollars to fuel up their car. It has to make sense. And so we're starting to see the narrative change around that, and that people are changing their perspective and saying, okay, how much does blue really cost, and what is the carbon intensity of that blue hydrogen that you're potentially making in Alberta? And that's really exciting for me, because that was really the genesis of our hydrogen roadmap, was looking at what is the Alberta advantage. We have this huge natural gas resource that we think can have a lot of value add to us here in the province, and hydrogen is one of those pieces that can actually add that value to it, while realizing the benefits of the environment and diversifying our energy economy. And so I'm really excited about how that narrative's changing, and that we're actually seeing investment and things starting to happen, even if it's not as fast as I wanted it to be.
I'm just going to reflect on that. I think the carbon intensity versus the color of hydrogen is also, again, to go back to the pragmatism. If we wait for green hydrogen, we're never going to try anything, because the hydrogen is not going to be there at the cost point that allow the project to happen. And so I've been in several discussions in Europe, like, Marion, is that green? I'm like, no, but we have to start. We have to start now. We don't have the luxury to wait for another 15 years, whether it's green, blue, which color. So I really appreciate, and it was about time that we shift from the narrative, because that's the only way forward. And I'm not an energy person, I'm not an oil and gas, I'm a sustainability person, so environment is very close to my heart, but then we don't have the luxury to wait, so we need to keep moving, no matter the color. And I know some people will really strongly disagree with me, but we don't have the luxury, so yeah, it was about time.
Yeah, I think the age-old adage, right? Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, right? Use your blue hydrogen, create your demand, maybe lower your prices, create the infrastructure, and then slowly switch the green to green hydrogen. Especially in Alberta, we have world-class CCUS that we can absolutely use to help us decarbonize as we get to a greener future. Yeah, Arvind, is there anything else that makes you excited for the future?
Yeah, I think certainly all the points that Marion and Charles have said. I don't want to repeat them, but I would say that there is a lot more pragmatism that is now kicking in terms of the use of hydrogen, the highest and best use of hydrogen, and it's becoming very, very clear where the role is and what sectors and which areas of sectors do we need to prioritize as industry and government, and have strategic policy support across those sectors, because back at the time it was like, let's just throw it all in there and let's see what sticks. And projects did take, and so we have come as far as we could, but the next kind of 4 or 5 years for us needs to have a very strategic focus on which sectors, which projects, and how do we get them going, because we really need to start to demonstrate. I'll give another reason why I'm also very excited is, and maybe I'll go take us all to Atlantic Canada, on the other end of Canada, because I was in Halifax last week. The demand for Canadian hydrogen products in form of ammonia for Europe is absolutely real. I mean, Europe has got absolutely a need right now to decarbonize. They're looking at their RFNBO quotas to have ammonia. And they are looking at Atlantic Canada as a very viable trading partner at a time when we are looking to diversify trading partners. So I think some deals will happen in the next few years. So really excited. And even if one of these projects go ahead, it is a lot of economic benefit to Canada, and it really signals that we are ready for business.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thank you all. We have about 5 minutes left, so I'd like to open up questions from the audience. If the audience has any, and let's start in person. If there's any in-person audience questions, then maybe we can move online. All right. It doesn't look like we have any in person. Is there any from online? No. Okay. Then I think that concludes our panel and the last panel of the day. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow at 10:10 for the Manufacturing for Hydrogen panel that we'll have right back here if you're coming in person, and through the same registration link if you're online. Feel free to stick around if you are in the audience and you would like to talk to any of our lovely panelists. And thank everybody so much for being here. Thank you.